Welcome back to the Lorna Whiston Schools podcast, the place where we connect with parents from around the globe to share our experiences on a variety of topics. We are a leading school and have been based in Singapore for over 40 years. We specialize in developing a lifelong love for learning, and our focus is on working with our parents to develop their children's 21st century skills, transforming them into the talented, critical thinkers of tomorrow. I am your host, Sarah Stillman, Head of Curriculum, and today we will be talking about English enrichment and tuition in Singapore with our guest, LW Edge teacher and curriculum writer, Eunice Liu. Hi, and thank you so much for joining us today.
You're welcome. Hi.
Just to start us off, would you mind telling our listeners a little about yourself and your previous experience teaching?
Well, I started off resisting teaching for a very long time. I went through a whole gamut of jobs. I have been a consultant. I have worked in a cafe. I have worked in a studio. I have worked basically a jack of all trades. And I finally started teaching in a private institution. Then I went on to NIE and MOE for, I've been with MOE for 10 years. And then I joined Lorna Whiston for this year. And I'm here now.
Wow, you have such extensive experience. We're very lucky to have you.
Thank you.
Parents sometimes ask me if there is a difference between enrichment and tuition. Would you mind clarifying that a bit for some of our listeners who might be wondering the same thing?
Well, I think in the industry here, for most parents, they just want to get help for their kids. But to share a bit about the difference would be that I guess enrichment would be to stretch kids who are who probably already have the basics and they need a little bit more of a challenge. Whereas tuition would be for kids who are struggling with the basics and maybe they need help understanding the basics. So that would, I guess, be the slight difference between enrichment and tuition.
Thank you for explaining that for us. I do notice sometimes, even in my own classes, there are students that, although I do believe that they're benefiting from my classes and I can see progress in different areas, that they would ultimately benefit from some sort of tuition-based model as well, especially when they're getting closer and closer to their PSLE year, if they are struggling. So that's very interesting. Thanks for sharing that. Next year, we will launch LW Edge, a program designed to give students that edge on exams. What, in your opinion, are the biggest advantages to the LW Edge way of teaching and learning compared to our English enrichment programs? And do you think it might be beneficial for some children to attend both the English enrichment and LW Edge in some cases?
Well, LW Edge is primarily focused on the MOE exam components. So that would cater to students who are struggling with dealing with certain components and how to understand them, how to improve on the skills. So we would focus and be very organized in teaching them how to understand, how to probably improve on them, and probably quite different from your enrichment classes because they won't. Enrichment classes are fun and they'll probably be very interactive and time probably passes a lot faster. Yeah, and in the LW Edge classes, your lessons are centered around your exam components. So it is much more structured around the different parts of the paper that we would see on a regular basis. So I guess in that sense, kids may not find it as fun. Yeah. In that case, I would say, yes, very structured and very organized.
And but I could see how that could be very beneficial. For example, if you have a student that is ultimately really struggling with their synthesis and transformation and just methodically going through
Yes.
every synthesis and transformation structure and just really spending a lot of time on that.
Right. And we'll focus on
more
the skills that are needed, and we'll focus
Yeah.
on the techniques that are specific to that section or that component, and then probably remind the child what is needed to be done for specifically that section or that component.
Yeah, because as much as we talk about constructivist learning and about really having that engaging environment, there is something to be said for route learning. And sometimes when students really are struggling with a concept or a way to do something for these exams, I've seen it can be extremely helpful to be teaching it in that highly organized way that you're talking about.
Yeah. Yeah, so in terms of even like grammar rules and maybe vocabulary, we would also like to get them to maybe write them down or put down notes on paper.
It's great. Thanks so much for clarifying that for us. I have one more question for you. With our PSLE Primary 6 students completing their exams soon, what is your biggest piece of advice, or what are your top tips for their success?
Well, this is their first major exam, so my advice is always to learn from this experience. Did you peak too early, or did you not? Did you enjoy the experience? Did you not? What did you learn about yourself? What did you learn about your learning style? I think that's very important moving forward, because I think all of us have different learning styles, and that may also change as we develop as students. I think knowing that will help us grow as a learner, moving on to either secondary school and even on to university. Yeah, so I think we should all be aware of that as learners.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today. We hope you enjoyed it as much as we enjoyed hosting it. Do send us any questions or comments you might have, or share an encouraging story about completing your PSLE exams. Thanks again.
You're welcome. Bye.